Okay, what's going on, guys? Both of our podcasts here, we are having a little bit of a shoot the shit session about the mentorship, and we've decided that we want to have, well, not we've decided, we're going to have like a very well-formulated podcast that goes through the mentorship, like a real piece of marketing content that answers a lot of FAQs and all that stuff, but this is not going to be that. This is more of us saying, hey, like a little bit more of a teaser, a little bit more of an origin story, kind of where we're at with this, because I know there are people, I don't want to make it seem like people are beating down the door. Like,
but they kind of are.
Yeah,
but I get a question every single time, and in fact, we should probably throw an FAQ box up.
Sure.
In both of our stories, so then we can just answer them in our formulated podcast.
So this is just like our
you
first.
Really put us some pressure with that well formulated first.
Yeah. So this will be our first just kind of discussion about it for people that are interested in what's going on. And so I want to just start very briefly with, I don't even know where I'm going to go with this, but it feels right. So I have a barber here, JT's Grooming, Round Rock, love you, bro. He's like really good barber, best barber I've ever had. And he's like, being a barber.
Because I've never cut his hair, just for the record. I'm feeling a little bit of like,
that's yeah, sure. So he's like us in a lot of ways. And him and I talk a lot about talk shop, whatever. And so he's like really good. He's got good business, but he is like us. He is himself with clients. He's just a one-man show, and he's got clients, like one-on-one clients like we do. And he feels very strongly that he has a good business and he has a lot to offer to up and coming people who are cutting hair and like not just from like how to do a fade but more level like running your business and being a good business person and growing clientele or whatever. And he was asking me how things were going with my business, and I mentioned what we were doing with the mentorship, and he just kind of like stopped me, and he's like, how do you get over he's like, wow, that's something I would love to do, because I guess Nat, you have, I'm sure, very intimate feelings on this too, having been in a similar place. But like your first goal, or his first goal, was I by myself want to get a full book of people that I can help, right? So it's like, I want to get busy myself. And then you do that, and then you're like, okay, I want to get really good at what I do. I want to get a full book. I want to get even better at what I do. Maybe I charge more. Maybe I move into a better shop or salon, and I'm bettering my own individual business. But then it's like, okay, but what's next? Do I open my own shop? Do I get subcontractors? Do I start a course? And so it is in a lot of ways, and I've always thought this as personal training, as a personal trainer back in the day, that those two businesses are incredibly aligned in how we think. It's like, it's just incredibly similar. They're incredibly parallel. And so he was like, he stopped me in the middle, and he's like, dude, I fucking want to do this for what I do. How do you get over that feeling of, and he was trying to describe imposter syndrome. He was like, where do you get off like telling people to, he didn't say that to me, but it's how do you get rid of those thoughts of where do you get off telling other people how to do this? And I will say that this was born from you and me, like, or the three of us, like, to a point where, like, I don't think any of us feel like we have it all figured out. But what I told him was, like, if you ask yourself a genuine question, because we live in a social media space where, like, it looks like everyone is doing better than us. It looks like everyone's got it figured out. It looks like it makes us feel like, where do we get off, pretending like we know anything? And I was like, here's the only question you have to ask yourself. Do you honestly, if there was a room full of people just out of barber school, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering like what these things are actually called, but do you feel like you could help them? Do you feel like you could help shorten their learning curve, help them be more successful quicker? Do you feel like you have the skills to help people who are behind you, not chronologically in years, but on the business end of things? And it's that simple. If the answer is yes, then block out the noise. Who cares what this other guy's course is? Who cares what this other guy's doing? Who cares if you feel like you're still young, or you think you're young, or where do you get off? It's like, do you actually feel like you could help people who were in your position, 10 years ago, let's say? And that's kind of what we're kind of doing here. It's like, I don't think any of us feel like we have it figured out. And I definitely get imposter syndrome of, I'm 32. I've been only doing this for a decade. I look up to these people in the industry a little bit older, like that have been doing this for like 20, 30 years, and they do research or whatever, there are some people in our space that are doing a mentorship, like Lane and Bill Campbell do one. Like, I don't know, like rattle off our competitors here, but like there's like a bunch of other people that are like respected in the industry that are doing these sorts of mentorship things. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of like being intimidated by that, or just ask ourselves the question. It's like, do we feel like we could help people who are where we were 5-10 years ago? And the answer is fucking yes. I think we can 100%. I feel amazing that we can. It's not about us being a know-it-all. And it's about being able to help somebody who's a little bit behind where we are in the business space, or just like hasn't been doing for as long, or is new to it, or just wants to get better. I don't want to make this about like, oh, I'm ahead of you, who fucking cares? But and so that's kind of how this was born, of us like, just, I feel like we could help people that, you know, are just starting out, or are just looking to get better, or sharpen their tools, or, you know. And so I definitely just wanted to start with that sentiment of like, this isn't like a we have it all figured out thing, but it's certainly a, hey, I think we can offer something for sure.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of go along with like your hairdresser analogy, you know, it's interesting because in our industry, obviously we're very individual, and the talent pool and what we have to offer as stylists is very unique. I mean, it is a very creative industry. And so there's definitely, while we do have standards of practice and, you know, haircuts with, you know, certain guidelines and things in place, a lot of us have our own artistic ability that kind of goes into like what we create behind the chair. And, you know, there's a saying that we have like in our industry, it's like, well, there has to be more than one of us. Like, I can't be the hairdresser for the whole entire world. Right. And so it's kind of that same kind of mindset, I feel like, even in our industry, where it's like, yeah, sure, we maybe don't have it all figured out, but damn, do we want to? Right. And there is part of that, like, every single coach that is an amazing coach or a better coach benefits our industry. And that's really, I think, part of it too, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people posture themselves like know this answer, but they don't want to tell you, right? Or like they want to keep this secret to themselves or the solution to themselves, but come pay me and I'll maybe share a little tidbits with you to like have this transformation that I have. And we're actually quite the opposite. I think the three of us, like, we're willing to make the mistakes, willing to own it out in the open, but at the same time to discover ways to kind of build a better space is really what we want. And when you have a desire to like share and to build up people, it naturally bleeds into how you want to support other individuals who are doing the same thing as you. And so it's not that like Hi is a better hairdresser or Chantel's a better hairdresser than me. Like, we have a lot of different things that we can offer as stylists. Some of us like doing certain things better than others. Some of us are better at doing things than others, but it's not even about like who is better. It's more about like, we have a common goal to like do incredible hair, make people feel really, really good, and have integrity in our work. And I think that's the kind of the space that the three of us want to create. It's not that we're on a pedestal and like, come and learn from us, but also come and learn from us. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've made a lot of errors in coaching. We've learned a lot over the last couple of years. By default, coaching as much as the three of us have in the amount of time that we have, there's a lot of, you know, roadblocks you can cut through and get ahead a little bit. I mean, I think what it comes down to is when we started Butters, it was like, man, I wish we could save some people some time, right? Like, all the stupid things that we did and all the mistakes that we made and all the things that we've learned, it would just be really nice. I really wish we could have just had ourselves, you know, the evolved version of like, hey, we can save you some time. We can save you some heartache, right? And I feel like that's kind of what we want to do here. It's not that like we're perfect coaches, but at the same time, like, we really do have a desire to like hone the craft and hone the skill and to like make our industry better. And that's really, I think, what we want to invite is our coaches that want to make this industry better. It's not about like hiding things or guarding a well-kept secret sauce or like whatever it is. It's more about like, how can we create a community of people that if I am not the only coach in the world, or I'm not the only hairdresser in the world, let's at least be in a network of people who are all in the same cause. And that's kind of, I mean, for me personally, that's like the space that I'm really excited to create with this program.
Absolutely. I mean, I second everything that you guys are talking about. I think that imposter syndrome is a funny one because it comes to anyone who's even thinking about trying to be vulnerable, trying to put themselves out there. And it tells you have to be a perfect teacher in order to teach. Like, do you have everything mastered in your life before you're allowed to, who are you to feel good about yourself, kind of a thing. But yeah, exactly like you just said, Nat. I mean, if we look at like the trajectory of our own personal growth, let alone our business, if I look at myself, when this all started, we have to recount the years every time. Is it 7, 8, 7, 6?
And it's going to be 8, so 7 years.
Like the 7 years ago when we started this, do I feel like I have learned enough or grown enough that I could go back in time and help myself? Yes, emphatically yes. And it's also not about us being, like you said, not the hairdresser for the world, but like nobody can do what I can do. Nobody can do what you can do, Nat. Nobody can do what you, Jordan. Like, we each get to take up our own unique space and owning that, I think, can be really inspiring to other people and create a ripple effect. And, you learn from, why do certain people or personalities appeal to us? Why do we learn better from one person than another? Why was your high school teacher that was your favorite? Why was that person your favorite? We just connect with certain people, right? And when you feel that draw or that connection to someone, I think that creates a really like fertile learning environment. If you're a coach, I'm always a little suspect of coaches that don't have coaches themselves, because it's like, do you believe in coaching or do you not? Right? How are you actively building your self-awareness? So I think that you can only coach as well as you yourself are coachable. You can only help someone with their self-awareness to the extent that you have built your own self-awareness. And without that, it can become a really toxic, rigid, rule following kind of structure, right? Where it's like the level that we want to coach at is really about becoming the best version of you, not just like the most muscular or thin or what have you. So I agree. I'm totally excited about this process and what we want to create. And even we like Jordan kind of referenced, we've been through several iterations of what we want to create, and we're really excited about the place that we're in now, and the model that we want to create. So I'm going to pass the microphone back to you, Jordan.
Cool. I think there's a couple things I want to get across in the next, we want to keep this podcast relatively short, so we got 15 minutes here, I want to start by just saying what it's called, and it's going to be called The Real Work Coaching. And I want to go more into that in another podcast as to like what we mean by that. And also just my knee jerk kind of have to get off my chest is that's can be a very pretentious. You can look at that in a pretentious way of like, oh, what other people are doing are bullshit. Like, we're doing the real thing. That's not necessarily what we mean at all. We're just trying to say that it's, but also.
We always have to have asterisks with everything, right? Disclaimer.
The point is just that we want it to be a little bit more holistic in the true meaning of the sense. Holistic, meaning looking at the whole thing, where we're going through the training side of things. We're going through nutrition. We're going through the business or the back end. We're going through the imposter syndrome stuff. We're going through the like mindset or art of coaching. It's not just a macro course. It's not like, oh, like when I'm done with this, like I can tell someone about how to set their macros and reverse dieting. It's like, all right, we're going to talk about those things too. But we really are like, the point of this was that those are the things that we see popping up every 2 seconds. Macro course, metabolism 101, and like just like this sort of thing where you're left with like, okay, I know how to give people macros. This isn't that. We're looking to do something slightly deeper, of which, macros and stuff is one part. So I didn't want to go too deep. We'll talk about that more, but it will be called The Real Work. And the reason that we're calling it that is because it's more than just macros, let's say.
Not to spin off too much, but it's like, yeah, if you're a coach, then that it's more than just tracking and mantras and weight loss. And so if you are aware of that as an individual and are seeing things within your clients and your own personal self journey here, that there's a lot more that nobody's telling you on Instagram that you really want to get into. And that's what that real work component really means. It's like, it's not just like, a lot of people think like, oh, if I just exercise, I'll be fine. Or if I just lose weight, I'll be fine. But we know that the real work happens a lot more internally. And that's what we're hoping to do, is to bring you guys into a space, like an internal space, to really kind of bust that open.
Yeah. I love that. And so Heidi mentioned that we've gone through a lot of iterations, and I think people are 14 minutes into this podcast, like waiting to hear what the fuck we're actually doing. And so I'm just going to give a little spiel on that, is that Heidi said it. We've gone through, like, I've had people are close to me that are like joking around me, like, what's taking so long, and what's taking so long is we've gone through so many iterations of how to package trying to help. As we're trying to help. So how do you package it? How do you, and we see, we've done a lot of R&D. We see a lot of courses out there. There are some people out there that do a course that's like, hey, here's my 12-week course. Here's a PDF, comes with a bunch of video modules. And, at the end of it, like, you get some, whatever, great. You've learned some stuff. And maybe you meet with us at the end one time or something, right? You get an hour with us at the end of your 12-week course. And then there are other courses that are like a Facebook group where like, we meet once a month on Zoom and you get like a community of people together, but that's really it. There's not a lot of structure to it. There's not like a teaching portion. It's more heavy on the community side of things, not heavy on the teaching side of things. And honestly, every iteration in between. Lane and Bill are doing something, Jackson and our friend Aaron are doing something, but we feel that ours is a smidge different. And what is most important to us, like instead of it being like, hey, here's a 12-week course that tells you everything you need to know. It's just like, that's just an oxymoron. It will not tell you everything you need to know. You will not get everything you need to know, because what we really want to do is go heavy on the interaction side, heavy on the connecting with you guys side. And so we will have, and we'll talk, we can break it down more specific, but we are going to do mostly Zooms, mostly live Zooms, and probably an even split. Let's say we did 2 Zooms a month, for example, a Zoom every other week, a fairly even split between lecturing on a topic and taking questions on a topic, and having more of an open-ended case study-based discussion with you guys of what's a problem that you're having. Let's bring that to the forefront, because I bet you we're all having it. And sort of like an interactive podcast where you have a group, you have the 3 of us, and I'll make my next point in a second, but you have the 3 of us that we can take a case study. We can take something that somebody's going through with a client. You can say, hey, I'm going through this with a client. How do you get your client to do this? Whatever. And we can bring that to the forefront. And so we're way more interested in connecting and interacting, but I also think that it would be wrong for us to not devote a percentage of what we are offering in more of a lecture sense. So what we most likely will do is have a topic or topics each month that we lecture on, and then taking questions on that, and then also doing another Zoom where it's an open Q&A where we, come and kind of answer whatever questions you guys have. So I don't want to go too deep into the absolute specifics of how long those are and when those are, but it's going to be heavy on the interaction side. But we are absolutely going to coming to these meetings with lectures, but also a more of an open space for us to discuss. We're going to have a smidge of a split between those two. And that interaction is big for us. We are also going to be offering up some of our back-end systems. So like some of the PDFs that we work with, some of the Google Sheets that we work with, some of our processes that we use. I think that like systems and back-end that can feel very like foreign and complicated to the coach who just wants to go out and help people, but they're like, oh, I need to help develop my systems. We will cover that. We will cover the business end. We will cover, getting an email list. We will cover your check-in process. We're going to cover the running the business aspect as well, for sure. And the last thing I'll say before you guys can touch on either the name or this fucking spiel I just went on, the last thing I'll just say, I must say, because I don't know if by the time I get the mic back, if I'll be able to say it again, is that I think so highly of this group. I think the world of, I just think that the 3 of us, if I really am just trying to be not biased, which is impossible, so I'm kind of talking about me and us here, but we are such a good team, and I just think that we really fill each other's gaps really well. And I've had conversation with Jenna early on of not that I wanted to do this myself, but I've always wanted to do something like this. So I've had thoughts creep up of should I do this by myself? Not while we got into this, but in the early stages of thinking about how I would go about doing this. And I just think to myself, absolutely not. I bring things to the table, and I thank God that Natalie brings things to the table and that Heidi brings her things to the table. And yeah, we have a lot of overlap, but we are very different. And I think you get 3 for the price of 1. And I think that there's not just 3 for the price of 1. I think that just sometimes I get on the podcast with you guys and I'm like, it's just so much better than I would have said this. And I learn things. And so I think, yeah, all right, when it comes to hypertrophy programming, sure, I'm heading that up. But there's so many things in here that I'm so happy to have you guys for. And I just think that we're just a ridiculously good team that I think fill each other's gaps in knowledge, round each other out well. And I just think that people who join, they get, it's not like it's me and, what's funny is I can make a list of people that I think are algorithmically very much like me. And I could do a course maybe with those people, but I think that's not as beneficial as doing the course with someone who's has some overlap, but brings a ton of their own skills. And you guys just do that immensely well. And I think people are getting a 3-for-1 price here.
Dude, 100%. And I think, what we really want to really, really hit home to you guys, we're not trying to make you us. Not that there's anything wrong with the 3 of us. And if you would like to be one of us, and you would probably get in our heads and be like, oh shoot, that's a little bit too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of courses out there that are trying to create that person, right? Like you have, an individual who's like, come and learn from me and be exactly like me. We're not trying to do that. We're actually trying to develop you as a coach. What do you bring to the table? How are you not the only hairdresser for the world, right? Like how is your individual self experience incredible and much needed in our industry and in our community? Like we bring very different things to the table, the three of us, and very different life experience. And you do too. And so it's more about like not becoming a copy cutter version of somebody else or some other macro coach or, some other like personal trainer and doing everything exactly like that. Like using your own personal self is also how you get out of that imposter syndrome. It's about like becoming your own individual and your own individual as a coach. But like, you can't really know that until you kind of get in there and see who you are too. And we're hoping to do a lot of that. Excited to unbox a lot of your own personal biases and beliefs as a coach, and how that can you can use that to harness it for like good, right? Instead of creating like another system of like, here's how do you become like the best robot you can be, right? And so the insider part of it is going to be exponential when it comes to the three of us. I will tell you that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think what you just said there is super profound in terms of one of the biggest coaching roadblocks that we see, which is people that are unable to coach people that are different than them. Maybe I'm a coach and I don't struggle with working out, or I don't struggle with
tracking.
Yeah, exactly. Like this person just has a different set of issues. When you are clear, we've built that self-awareness, your values, like the information, your training is solid. You're able to connect with other people and coach them in a way because you're not so caught up in your own personal drama, or maybe a flawed sense of responsibility about like how you're supposed to change this person into something else. But rather when you're coming from a place of self-acceptance, it's so much easier to meet your client where they're at, and help them in really, really meaningful ways, meet them with compassion and support, and help them with their motivation and confidence in ways that you really can't if you don't know some things about your own lens.
Look, you got 3 minutes for the mic.
I know.
I didn't expect that. No, but okay. Anything else that we think on a specific end that you got? Any other like questions that I would like? We're going to do a more formal thing when we have an absolute like 100%. Hey, this is when it's starting. This is what it costs. This is what we're going to do. All of that. So if you're listening, that's what you're hoping for. Promise that's in the works. This was more of like, hey, a teaser. This is kind of where like more of like our ethos, where we're coming from. Are there any other questions that people have asked you specifically that you feel like comfortable answering today?
Mostly of like, just the excitement and like, when's it going to start? But like, if you've ever listened to any of our podcasts and you've ever wanted to hit pause and like ask a bunch of questions or like just kind of be a part of the conversation, that's really what this is.
Yep.
It's an opportunity for you guys to just kind of come in and be with us and have some fun.
I get fucking jacked up with that. I'm sorry. That like what you just said, we talked about that last week. So if we're like the one thing that I can imagine, if I listen to podcasts, like I'm listening to like this like podcast with like Coach Kasim about something this week, and I'm like, if I could just pause you guys and ask a question real quick, that would be fantastic. And I think that's going to be a lot of what we are doing, where it's like, hey, we're going to be lecturing something. Maybe it's reverse dieting. Maybe it's, getting your back end systems together or whatever. And the ability for you guys to be able to sit there and be like, raise your hand and stop us and clarify something and ask a question. It just multiplies, magnifies, exponentiates, which is probably not a word, like the amount of learning that you can get because you can stop and clarify and ask. And there are other people who will do that and ask things that you didn't even think about. And so this like idea of an interactive, it's like being in school again. I hate that, but like, it's like being in a way less boring, way more fun school, where it's like way more free and open, like a college seminar where you can like ask like questions and it can be a little bit more open. So a nice balance of education and community, and I think that's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, yep. And come and meet new other like-minded coaches too. I mean, it's going to be fun for all, for sure.
Agree.
All right, till our next 5-hour podcast, we're gonna get more specific.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm glad we did that. I'm sure people will find some value in this. And if you're listening, we're coming at you with some very, very specific stuff in the next couple of weeks for sure. And yes, we can even drop that. Like one of the things that's holding us up is we are working on our website. We don't have any good pictures together. So as of this recording, like I'm flying out to see you guys in a couple days. So that's like we're going to be taking some photos so we can get the website up and running, and then we'll be ready to roll.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's end this here. See you in the next one.